The question that often comes up from students is, what do you mean when you say dynasty?
Right.
What do you mean when you say dynasty?
See, the king, stay the king, all right? So how do you get to be the king? Y'all don't know how to play chess, do you? So nothing, man. Look, I'll teach y'all if y'all want to learn.
Welcome, everybody. This is another episode of the Dynasty Wire. My name is Greg Wharton, not the normal guy you're used to hearing, the draft genius. He is doing a little R&R out in the countryside. It's hard to get some bandwidth going on out there. So my name is, like I said, Greg Wharton, the Dynasty Mechanic at Dynamo Mechanic. And I have today with me a guest we're very excited to talk to about at D-Gen Indy. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's happening?
Oh, not much. Excited to talk about some players. An upcoming draft should be exciting. He writes for Breakout Finder.
Yeah, breakoutfinder.com.
See.
Definitely Devi and Dynasty focused. A lot of good content coming out.
Awesome. That's exciting. We'll let you plug in all your good stuff at the end here. So we're going to talk. This is season 3 and we're of the Dynasty Wire, so we're pretty excited about that. So one question that we want to talk about, who's way too hyped right now, out there. I think of like the DJ Moores of the world or the Chris Godwin, stuff like that. I know Chris Godwin was great, don't get me wrong, but who's too hyped?
Too hyped going into this year. I'm kind of lower on Deebo Samuel right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I know he had a great rookie year, but I keep seeing talk of 49ers looking for wide receivers in this draft. And to me, that tells me they're kind of looking for a new alpha wide receiver, and that he's obviously their gadget guy, and I think he'll continue to be productive, but I'm not quite sure we'll see him get past that 1,000-yard mark. I really like what he did, but I think that 800-yard mark is kind of where I see him progressing in the next few years. So that's like a guy that I'm definitely lower on right now.
For sure. So like a wide receiver 3, you kind of see his ceiling capped out at if they draft like an alpha like CeeDee Lamb or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. I think for myself, I'm a little hesitant on is DK Metcalf. I was excited about him when he came out, but it's one of those things where Seattle they like to run the ball. They don't throw the ball much. They still have Tyler Lockett there. It's one of the things where I think he's a boom bust kind of player, but I know everyone loves DK Metcalf. I think I saw someone say he's in their wide receiver 1 rankings. I go, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy talk. I think he did great and definitely blew my mind and expectations. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, well, I was wrong, but I still think the hype's still getting out of control because he's a freak of nature, and that's awesome to see, right? You're like, oh man, he's beastly. Oh God, he's a beefcake, right? But I don't know. I just have my doubts about it just because of the system, and he'll probably prove me wrong again this year, but we'll see.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the most polarizing prospects, I think, coming in last year at wide receiver. You either seemed like you loved him or you hated him. And he definitely lived up to some of the hype for sure. And I think he did a good job. I think he landed in a good spot and was able to progress in his route tree throughout the season. I think you kind of saw him progress. But I would agree. I think you're looking at a lot of 3 for 100-yard type games that could happen once every 4 weeks or something like that.
Like a really good Will Fuller kind of thing, right?
Right.
Well, cool. So let's go on to our next segment. Let's talk about second-year breakouts that we think might happen. So like Paris Campbell might break out, N'Keal Harry, players like that. Who do you got for that?
Yeah, I mean, Paris Campbell's definitely a guy I think if he can stay healthy is a guy that I like going into this year. I think Rivers is an upgrade, maybe not a huge upgrade right now over Jacoby Brissett, but I do think he's an upgrade, and I think he'll be able to, hit those shorter routes to Paris, and Paris can use his legs to make things happen. But another guy that I'm really interested in is Deontay Johnson. this year with the Steelers. And I think with Roethlisberger back, I think he could have a huge year. He was very productive last year. I think he's a good route runner. I don't quite know what happened with his senior year in college, but his junior year was very productive. And I think we're going to see some of that going into next year.
Where did Deontay play at?
Toledo.
Okay. And so he just kind of fell off the map his senior year?
Yeah, not completely fell off, but I want to say he put up about 1,300 yards receiving and 13 touchdowns or so his junior year, and then senior year was more around 700 to 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. Okay. So a fairly big drop off, and quite a few less catches as well.
All right, that makes sense. I guess mine would be more of a how much proof to back this up, but it's more of a deep desire of love and admiration for David Montgomery, and I hope that the Bears can turn it around with him, because I think he's a very do-it-all back. He's patient. He has great vision. I loved what I saw out of Iowa State. I know he's not the most bursty guy or the most sexy guy in the world, but I still enjoyed what I saw, and so that's my second-year breakout player I would like to see happen and possibly happen, like we talked about Paris Campbell, of course, too.
Yeah, Miles Sanders is actually another one. And I know he had a very good year last year. I think he had, 800 yards rushing or so. Maybe
something like that.
But I think he could be in for a huge year as well.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's go on to the next one then. Third-year breakouts. You know, the whole saying for some old folks like us, at least I like to think I'm old, is 3-year wide receiver breakout. That was a thing, remember, back in the day. Now all the rookies have kind of started breaking that mold more and more every year, it seems like. So who are some of your third-year breakouts? I didn't have to be wide receiver, just in general.
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily have a good wide receiver breakout. I think guys like Cortland Sutton and DJ Moore are primed to take kind of that next step. Now, both of them, were around the 1,200-yard mark, but if they can, tack on a couple more touchdowns, couple hundred more yards, I think it wouldn't surprise me to see either of them coming in, top 5, top 6 at the position next year.
No doubts. I completely agree with all of that, what you said. I also think about Mike Gesicki, his third year in Florida and Miami, so really excited to see what he might do. Tight ends take a while to really produce, and I liked what I saw when he came out more of athletically. So I really enjoyed seeing that. Who was the other one I was thinking about? Yeah, I'll probably come back to me later.
What do you think about running backs? Do you have any third-year breakout running backs? That class wasn't exactly great.
That was the wasn't that the Barkley class? No.
Yeah,
it was, right?
So we're looking at like carry on, right? When Geis. So we're looking, Geis has been injured the last couple of years. So if he can stay healthy, maybe.
I still have faith in carry on. It might not happen in Detroit. It's the only issue, since there are a lot of rumors floating about them drafting a running back. Yeah,
that'll be interesting to see. Another guy, Nyheim Hines, I think could have a good impact. I don't know if it'll be as huge fantasy wise. He might be better for the team, but I think if you can look at what Rivers did in San Diego with Eckler, maybe there's a chance that Hines kind of fills that role and can be productive, because Mac doesn't really provide much in the passing game. So yeah, that's about it for my third-year running back breakouts, at least.
Well, maybe Rashad Penny will finally break that mold and finally just burst onto the scene finally for a lot of those bleepers out there. I was not one, but
no, I'm with you on that one. I've been a big Chris Carson fan.
Yep.
I always liked the way he worked hard and just kind of went and took that job, regardless of them drafting Penny to kind of fill that spot.
I thought about another second-year breakout. What do you think about Darrell Henderson at the Rams now?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Malcolm Brown kind of was the guy behind Gurley last year. I don't know if it's still his role. We're looking at maybe 30 extra carries compared to Henderson. Henderson's an explosive guy. I could see it happening.
Okay, awesome. I thought about that afterwards. Like, oh yeah, that was the guy I was thinking about. Another guy I was thinking about is with the whole. Oh, we should also talk about the whole news today of Gronk coming out of retirement, right?
Yeah.
What were we thinking?
Yeah, 10 minutes in, and we haven't even mentioned Gronk. That's got to be a record for a podcast today.
I was going off the show notes, and I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm like, oh, news are important. Tampa Bay traded their 4th-round pick for Gronkowski in the 7th, and apparently Gronk's coming out of retirement.
Yeah.
I
mean, Belichick trades a wrestler for a 4th-round pick. It's amazing. I don't know how he does it.
Witchcraft. What would you pay for him? I saw a poll out there that said only 1st and 2nd, and I wrote in there, I'd pay a 3rd, at most a late 2nd, because he's 2 years removed from football now, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you don't know how much rust is on there still.
You talking fantasy drafts then?
Yeah, no, rookie drafts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm really touching him. I think he could be productive, and there's always the whole Arians doesn't use tight ends mantra, but I think you use Gronk. I could see him being a red zone guy, but I don't know that that's much different than how Brait was used. I do think they like using tight ends down the middle of the field, and that was kind of Howard's role last year. So it'll be interesting to see how they, employ 2 tight ends if they don't, I guess, trade OJ Howard away. Yeah. They ran out of 12 personnel a fair amount of times last year. So having Gronk and Howard on the field, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, that's 2 dynamic athletes, at least, if Howard can ever get it together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Tom Brady loves running as a tight end, so hence it's like I think he's already making the calls down there. Hey, I want this player. I want this player. I want this guy. Makes me wonder what's going to happen to Ronald Jones.
Yeah,
3rd year breakout maybe.
Yeah, potentially. But they seem to be one of those top spots for running backs.
I hope so.
Yeah. There's a few guys I wouldn't mind seeing go there.
Well, however, a nice little segue there. Yeah, look at that. Who would you like to see go there?
I'm a Cam Akers fan, so I would love to see Cam Akers stay in Florida, go to Tampa. I think he's good in pass protection, which would be important, I think, to Tom. And then, he can be productive in the passing game, and I think he's a dynamic athlete and runner. And I think Tampa's line isn't great, depending on who you look at, whether it's Football Outsiders or PFF or something. They kind of have them rated drastically differently. But Akers is used to running behind a bad offensive line. So I would love to see him end up there.
No, absolutely. I watched a lot of his film, and I did a little short series on Sleeper Wire, and I enjoyed it. So when it comes to and it's my first time actually really diving into film this season. I've always watched football, obviously, for years, but it's something you're trying to do film analysis and you're trying to learn, and you're going to make a lot of wrong calls, of course. But how do you see him as a good blocker? I saw him, and I was like, he's not a good blocker. He will try. Don't get me wrong. He tried a lot, and I give him props for that. But it's a lot of times you just sit there and wait for the guy to come to him, and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I guess it depends on the film. I think Florida game, you kind of saw it all with him. I think at times he does kind of wait, but there's been times where I've seen him be aggressive. If he sees I think if he recognizes the assignment quickly, he's aggressive. He'll go try and clog the hole. But there are some head scratchers for sure where he just kind of whiffs.
Well, and that's the case with most college running backs. So a lot of them don't know how to pass pro for the life of them. Now his name is DeAndre Swift. He does pretty well, in my opinion. Jonathan Taylor, I haven't gotten too much film into him, but it's one of those ones I'm like, everyone else likes him. I don't need to dig too much into him.
Yeah.
Something I would want to change.
A lot of people are high on Edwards-Helaire, but he is not a very good pass protector. That's for sure. No. I have not been impressed with him in pass blocking.
Okay. Wow, that's good to know. Well, and he probably won't be asked to pass block too much since he's more of a pass catcher, right? He'll probably be
Right.
asked on a flat more than anything, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's continue on and go in landing spots since that's what we're kind of talking about is we're excited. The draft's 2 days away. I'm so excited. My wife accused me of being more excited for draft than our wedding. I kind of got offended, but it's back of my head going, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
So what are your top 5 players and that you're super excited to see out, and where do you want to see them go?
Ooh, that's tough. So do you want to go by position? So like,
that's what we have in our notes. We can go by position, do whatever you like. These are your favorite players. I'm flexible.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to me. Tua seems to be falling a little bit, at least according to what I see out there, with different, draft analysts. It seems like, I don't know how far we're really talking, if that's, outside the top 8 or so. I think once you get to that point, somebody's going to trade up and get him. And I understand the concerns. He's got the hip, the wrist. There are definite injury concerns, but I just love the kid. I love the way he throws the ball. I love the way he commands the team. I think he's going to be a stud. And, I'm really looking forward to seeing him. I don't know where he'll land. I've seen Chargers mocked a lot. Early on it was Miami. Now they seem to be enamored with Herbert, if you can believe anything you read out there today, but it is the season of lies, so we know how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then there's always the Patriots. Plenty of talk about them trading up. I don't see that happening, but I think San Diego would be a pretty good spot for, or I guess LA, right? LA Chargers. Still haven't gotten used to that.
Me neither, man. Me neither. No, I get that. Absolutely. I love Tua as well. Not the guy I was going to talk about. So so a quarterback, that's great. I think people should not be down low on him. For super flex, would you draft him above Burrow or no?
Oh, I don't think I could do above Burrow. What Burrow did last year was, it was record breaking.
It was ridiculous.
So I'm really interested to see what he can do. I think I would still take Burrow 1, but Tua 2.
Okay. All right. No, that makes perfect sense. The reason I'm asking because I had the first 2 picks in a rookie superflex. I know, right? So that's what I was planning on doing, but we'll see where the draft leads us. All right, cool. What's your next player?
Yeah, let's see. So I already touched on Cam Akers. Jalen Reagor is a wide receiver that I don't think is getting as much respect right now as he should be. I see him as a first round talent, and I keep seeing him talked about in kind of the back end of the second round, which as a Steelers fan would be awesome because I would love to see him in Pittsburgh. Or, it'd be kind of neat if he went to Indianapolis as well, given the fact that his dad was on the Super Bowl team there. I think he's a guy that I have higher than some of these other guys like Justin Jefferson, Denzel Mims, guys that are being talked about kind of in that late first round area. That's kind of where I really like to see Reagor. I think he's going to perform really well next year.
Yeah, no doubts. I'll go ahead and go over a couple of my players since there's a stigma about Big 12 receivers specifically that they don't do well in the NFL. And there's been, tons of players, a long list, right? And But there's a ton of Big 12 receivers coming out this year. They're amazing. Mims, Yuri mentioned, Reagor, CeeDee Lamb. There's a bunch of others. I'm drawing a blank right now. Does that concern you at all?
It doesn't. I've seen the same thing said about some of the Pac-12 wide receivers. And I think it's unfair to the guys that are currently playing to then knock them for previous failures. That's like saying, Penn State running backs weren't very good before Saquon, so he's not going to be very good. That's
absolutely
not fair to Saquon. So, I don't buy into a lot of that. And there does tend to be a lack of defense in the Big 12 for sure. A lot of high scoring games, but I think these guys, from what you see on film, these are talented players.
No, absolutely. I agree with as well. My receivers actually Denzel Mims. I like regular have him rated above Mims, but I also have a deep burning love for Mims because he's one of the true like big alpha receivers, like the AJ Greens and Julio Jones like that. And now is he as good as them? No, I'm not saying that, but more of like body wise and the way he plays. And I love like my favorite player is AJ Green. I love watching him play. He's so graceful, but so big and commanding at the same time. It's just such a beautiful thing to watch him play. And that's kind of how I saw with Mims. I'm not saying he's going to be AJ Green. Not saying that at all. I hope that's what he turns into.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great.
Oh, dude. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I would do with myself. I might just, go in the corner and, be busy for a couple days. I don't know. But anyways, back to the point. I love Denzel Mims because I saw a stat on Twitter. I was going to pull this up earlier, which was mind-blowing to me. Most of the other players, the top receivers, have had a lot of bubble screens, flats, stuff like that, short to get a lot of their production, where Mims had like zero, like close to 0% of his production came from mostly just dominating on the outside and being a number one receiver, which you don't see much in the college. Very much. No. And so that's one thing I really liked about that. And you watch his tape, the guy just has great body control. And I love big receivers and I always get burned by them. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But I love to see him in Green Bay, end of the first rounds where he's getting mocked to right now, which I love seeing him in Green Bay or heck, San Francisco. I'm a 49ers fan. So I love Debo. Debo. But I think Mims and Debo will be a great pair where they complement each other very well. You have Debo doing all the underneath stuff all day long, and then you have Kittle in the intermediate of the field. You have Mims just doing everything else. I just think it'd be a great complement to all of each other.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point with the big receivers too. Last year, it seemed like there was a trend, maybe even the last few years, where teams were focusing on kind of that smaller, faster, sharp route runners. And you saw that, in the last year's draft in the second round with Isabella and then getting into McLaurin and everyone. I don't know if teams are just looking to try and find the next Tyreek Hill. But they're always, I think, and part of me wanted to discount big wide receivers coming into this draft, but it's so hard because I think they're so helpful to teams when they hit, And
look at Metcalf.
Right, exactly. And a guy like Mims who has that size and speed, a guy that runs a 4.38 is at that size is impressive.
It's unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah. The quarterback I like, this is going to be, I started watching film and I'm new to it. And there's a lot of flags with this guy, but I also think there's a lot of pros and can outweigh the cons if, he gets in the right system and can wait a while, and that's Jake Fromm. I know he's not the greatest arm in the world, but someone I do respect, Matt Waldman, listens to a lot of him lately, and he's saying how a lot of his issues can be fixed when it comes to his arm power because he uses only his arm. He doesn't use the rest of his body at all and can turn into a Drew Brees-esque like player if he learns how to throw properly. And I was like, that's an interesting perspective. Yeah. And that made me go, wow, the guy's a technician and is really smart, obviously. You watch him play at Georgia, it's really well done, and he understands the game.
Yep.
So I like him as a high upside player. I love to see him go to freaking New Orleans would be a great spot for him, for instance. To sit behind somebody for a couple of years. Anywhere that like that. Or Tampa Bay, which I don't think that would work well in Bruce Arians, but somewhere like where he can just hang out for a couple of years and learn the game and learn how to throw better would be great.
Well, that's an interesting point because I think there's a couple guys in this draft where if they go to a team like the Saints or somewhere else, maybe even the Colts, where there's a veteran in front of them, they can sit for a year, kind of pick their brain, learn, and then start, in their second year. Guys like Jordan Love, Fromm could be, in a similar spot. It'll be interesting to see how those teams attack this draft in terms of quarterbacks because they do have, guys that are getting older. So do they jump in early or what guys are going in the second round? I'm not a big Eason fan. I've seen him going in the second round. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But Fromm's a very cerebral type guy, and if it's a mechanics thing that could improve his strength, then he's a very interesting QB prospect.
Yeah, and that's what I thought as well. So, and I also think Pittsburgh would be a great landing spot for any quarterback to sit behind Big Ben for a couple of years as well.
And then there's still, we still have some of the dominoes to fall. Does Dalton get traded? Does Cam sign somewhere? Does Winston sign somewhere? So there's a lot. This could be a crazy few days. I'm excited for it.
I've been loving this offseason. Like, I'm literally checking my phone all the time, like a crack addict. I'm like, what's happening next? What's happening next? And I get nothing. And I get disappointed. And I'm like, I feel like Dave Chappelle in that one episode. Anyways, back to it. We talked to Cam Akers already. What do you think about Keyshawn Vaughn?
He's not a guy that I've typically been high on. Okay. I think he's an okay running back, given the right spot. I think, if in the right landing spot, I think a lot of guys can be successful.
Sure.
They don't get to the NFL without being talented in some way. Personally, I'd rather have a guy like Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is a better running back than Keyshawn Vaughn is. He just does more to impress me. But what about you? What are your thoughts on him?
I like him a lot. As I said, I need to watch more tape. I just too busy lately, which is weird because everyone's in lockdown. And I'm like, I'm going fixing airplanes. Yeah. So I don't know how I'm essential. I'm essential. I'm essential to my job, apparently.
That's a good thing. Always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I like about him is he's just ferocious in a sense. So you watch him play. He has a chip on his shoulder. He likes to play. And I know, all the data people out there are like, oh, you can't quantify that. Or, that doesn't always work out. And you're right, it doesn't. But something I like watching him play is he always wants to win. And that's something I can appreciate. It kind of reminds me of Chris Carson in a sense. Not as powerful at all, but in a sense of he's got something to prove.
Right. Kind of runs angry.
Yeah, exactly. Which maybe not, in turn long-term success in the NFL, but I still like him. And I like him. Landing spot, though, I don't know, would be a good spot because, I don't know. That's a little more difficult to say. If he does go to Tampa, for instance, okay, cool. But, I don't get super excited on top of my head.
Yeah, right.
Which makes me sad.
Yeah, I mean, a place like Tennessee, maybe sticks around in the state. If Henry leaves next year, maybe he's a guy that would step in and fill in well there.
What about he went to the Lions?
Yeah, Lions would be interesting. I still have some hopes for Carry-On, but I think you mentioned earlier that what our wishes are might not be what the Lions' wishes are. And because there is some talk out there about that. So, yeah, that wouldn't be a bad spot. And maybe if Carry-On isn't a guy that can handle the full load, they would complement each other pretty well.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to your next player you're excited about.
Yeah, no, we haven't touched on tight ends. This isn't a very strong tight end class to me. I think I would look towards a guy like Adam Troutman just because he's got a good size. He was very productive at Dayton. I think if you're looking for a flyer in a draft and you're looking for a needed tight end, he's a guy I would take a stab on. Cole Kmet's another guy that's mentioned, but none of them really inspire me. I'd rather trade for Gesicki, like you said, like you mentioned earlier, a guy that's probably primed for a breakout. But still could be pretty cheap to trade for.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think him and Jonnu Smith. I know people are a little. I don't get why people are down on Jonnu Smith. He did really well whenever Delaney Walker was out. So I don't. Yeah,
I'm a Jonnu fan, so I'm with you there.
Yeah, I'm from Missouri. We talked about a little bit of this before the podcast, so I'm a little biased in this take. I'm excited about Albert. Now,
okay, yeah.
He's often injured and he has some issues, but the guy is a freak. it's just kind of like the same thing with Gesicki. If he can actually kind of fine tune and get the technicalities of his position down in the NFL, holy crap! Yeah. And if you're going to take a flyer in the 4th round, take it on a really athletic tight end, and maybe Ladarius Green for forever and ever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Albert's that's a good one. That's a good one.
And no, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name.
No.
Hard pass. He talked about doing IDP. I do IDP, but I don't know enough about IDP rookies. Do you?
No, that's
okay.
Not my forte.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, I know there's a lot of guys at the top end of this draft. Obviously, Chase Young might be the surest thing in this draft.
Yep.
I like Okuda a lot. Yeah, those Ohio State defensive players, they just produce them and wide receivers, man. It's crazy.
I know, seriously though, and their wide receivers always come out of nowhere too. Like each time, Michael Thomas, it's not nowhere. Some people said they're going to do good. Michael Thomas, Terry McLaurin, and I love Terry McLaurin a lot. I love that guy. He's literally one of my favorite players to watch. I like Patrick Queen because I think he has a cool name.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't think Josh Uche out of Michigan. I don't think he performed in the combine at all. I think if he had, he'd probably be talked about a little bit more.
Okay,
very athletic edge guy. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him go higher than maybe some people expect.
Nice. I also like a Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. I've seen some highlights on him, seen some tape. I'm not an expert as a state on IDP. That's not my forte at all, but I do like watching some linebackers, just absolutely destroy people, and it's great to see. All right, cool. So what other kind of player? And we're good to scrap the IDP portion of that. That's something we're going to talk about. What's another player you're excited about? Doesn't have to be any position, just any other player you're like, I love this guy.
Henry Ruggs is a guy that seems to be that Metcalf this year, is very polarizing. Mm-hmm. The analytical people seem to be down on him because of the market share and, his breakout and everything. But I think the guy is very dynamic. I think he's much more than just a speed guy. I've seen him, go up and climb the ladder and high point balls, make contested catches, run good routes. I think in the right situation, he could be very good. Now, I'm not convinced that he's going to be very good for fantasy as much as he is just to help a team. I look at him, if he goes to a place like Denver, I love Cortland Sutton in that scenario.
Absolutely.
If Ruggs is there to kind of take the top off the defense and open things up for Sutton on the other side, I think Sutton's in for a monster year. And I do think Ruggs in that case would have a few, I think it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with Metcalf, where he may have, 3 for 80 and a touchdown, or, just some much more of a big play guy. But in the right scenario, I think he could be very good, even though he's polarizing in the fantasy community right now.
So like a Deshaun Jackson kind of role where he's actually kind of consistent production, but not like as up and down.
Right. Now, if he gets to Deshaun Jackson level, then you hit the jackpot. I think that's a huge ceiling for him. Because I'm a big Deshaun Jackson fan. That guy was really good.
He was.
So I'm not really ready to say that Ruggs could be that, but maybe he can be a better version of what Marquise Goodwin has been for the 49ers.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking too. Like a Will Fuller-esque. I think people in fantasy football forget about this is actually real football, and people are trying to win games, not just win people fantasy football, right? And unfortunately, that means tight ends got blocked. That means wide receivers got blocked. You notice every 49ers receiver, if they can't block, they don't play. I think that's one thing that Ponte Pennis got in the doghouse this past year was he got asked to block, and sometimes he did great, and sometimes he didn't do great. And Kyle Shanahan goes, no, you run block. When I tell you to run block, you're going to run block, and it sucks to be you. But, what I mean?
And that's one of the things, actually, that I think kind of boosts Denzel Mims. His ability to block on the outside is tremendous. And I think that's a trait that a team will fall in love with, especially a team like the 49ers who have kind of been mentioned with Mims a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for that. If that does happen, I'd be really excited. No, yeah, I don't know how I feel about Ruggs. I'm excited for him. I'm more excited about him than I have previous speedsters that have come out. If that makes sense. Like, I think he has more sure hands. I think he's more durable. More for sure thing, I feel like, than previous speedsters that came out. But at the same token, I'm also kind of hesitant. So I'm really excited. I'm really eager to see where he goes. If he goes to the Niners, I'd be happy about that because Debo will still eat. Ruggs, it'll be a real true committee at the wide receiver. It won't be one alpha or another. It'll just be, I think it'll be pretty even keel.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Another player I'm pretty stoked on, that I loved watching a lot personally was CD Lamb. I know he's the top receiver, and like, of course you loved watching him, but how could you not? Like, watch him, your jaw is on the floor, and you had to constantly pick it back up and put it back, and then it keeps falling off.
Yeah,
like
he's been one of my favorite players to watch the last few years. That Oklahoma offense is so high powered, but you could even tell when Hollywood Brown was there, as dynamic as that guy was, CeeDee Lamb was always consistent.
Oh, yeah.
And, he had I think he got hurt his freshman year, but then came back and put on some weight in an effort to try and prevent further injuries. And what he became after that, he's just a beast. He's my wide receiver one.
Same.
I can't wait to see what happens in the draft.
I'm so excited. I don't even know how to all the people I work with are not football. Like, they like watching football. They're not like into football, and they're all looking at me like I'm crazy because like, Greg, what do you listen to all day? Oh, podcast about what? Football. Yeah. Football's not even playing right now. So.
Yeah, I've learned to just not even at work. Just I hear football conversations going on, and I don't participate because I feel like I would just be like, no, that's not right. Like, no. And it's just, I feel like it would rub people the wrong way. And so I just kind of avoid football.
That actually happened to me today. And I need to do that too. I decided because the guy goes, yeah, Gronk's coming back. I'm like, yeah, I saw. He's been gone for a couple of years. No, I think it's only been a year. And I'm like, pretty sure it's been 2. And he's like, no, I'm pretty sure he played last year. I'm like, I know for a fact he didn't play last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
but I could tell I rubbed him the wrong way a little bit. I was like, sorry.
Yeah, I know how it goes. That's what I'm saying. I just tune out. I'm like, all right. I listen and laugh, and then I text my friends, and I'm like, listen to what this guy's saying. It's like,
oh, that's hilarious. People are probably listening to us too right now, going, these guys are crazy.
All right.
So let's do a quick rundown. We had time. I think we are not in too big of a hurry.
Yeah.
Let's go for the first round. Like, players, I know we talked about going, there's probably one running back going to go in the first round, more than likely, right? Like, not sure where, but I'm sure it will happen.
Yeah. There always seems to be at least one.
Where's yours? Let's go with Swift. Swift, Taylor, they're both 1A, 1B, in my opinion, the same tier.
Yeah.
They're one's a little bit better at some things than another, and vice versa, right? Where are your top landing spots for each one of them?
Yeah, I mean, again, Tampa's got to be there. If Swift, somehow ends up there, I don't think that's going to happen in the first round. Later in the first round, I'm trying to think with what teams are back there. The Ravens are an interesting team to me with Ingram getting older. I don't think Justice Hill is a guy that can carry the load as a 3-down guy. So if you send Jonathan Taylor to the Ravens, man, that's such an ideal spot with the volume of running that they have, that attack. Really any of the top guys. But I think Taylor would be a really good fit there. I do see Swift being the first guy off the board. The Jags are another interesting one. If Fournette ends up getting traded, that's another majorly high volume running game that I think any of these guys would succeed as soon as they step on the field the first time there. I know there's talk of Raquel Armstead being behind him, or Divine Ozigbo, I think is there as well. I'm not convinced that Fournette's going to get traded, but if he does, that's one of my favorite landing spots.
For sure. What happens if one of them goes to Miami?
I think Miami's a interesting spot. I mean, they have so many picks to try and rebuild this team. You know, you're looking at probably a brand new quarterback. If they don't take a quarterback in the top, you know, with their 5th pick or whatever it is, I'd be shocked. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a good landing spot as well. I think, you know, it's kind of fun to watch a quarterback, a running back, you know, a wide receiver, kind of all grow together. I watched that growing up in Indianapolis with the Colts and seeing Peyton and Edgerrin and Marvin, how they all kind of came within a couple of years of each other and they all grew, and it was a high-powered offense. So not saying Miami's going to reach that level. Don't get me wrong.
You heard it here first, okay? Miami's going to become the next Indy, okay?
Yeah, but I think there is something to that where the guys can grow together, and I think that's a good spot.
No, absolutely. All the Justice Hill truthers out there are screaming at you right now. I just want to let you know. I'm not one of them, but
I've got a few or at least one in one of my leagues that I'm sure he'll be cursing. He was convinced all last year that he was going to take over Ingram's job.
No,
it didn't happen.
I knew Ingram was going to hold on to that job, and he's still going to hold on to that job this year. I think there's going to be a lot of running backs. I think we're going to get frustrated this year about the running backs and where they go, because I think one's going to go to Atlanta, one's going to go to Detroit, one's probably going to go to the Ravens, guaranteed. There's going to be a couple of sweet spots. I finally see. Okay, so here's my interesting theory about Kansas City. They have a pick at the end of the first round. They're not going to draft a running back. I think they actually really like Damian Williams, a lot more than people love Damian Williams.
Yep.
And
I mean, people have been waiting for Damian Williams to get, to lose his job for, at least all last year. And now this whole offseason, it's been the same thing.
Yeah. And they actually extended him, right? I remember.
I think so.
Yeah. And they have more important needs on defense to shore up than I think draft running back in the first round.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting. I've seen Kansas City tied to Ruggs recently. Have you heard any of that?
I did. There's rumors that they want to trade up to get him, which you had to go up from 32 to like 13. You had to trade at the 49ers, essentially, or the Raiders. And Raiders aren't going to trade out of that spot. They need a receiver.
That one's a puzzling one to me. I don't understand that one, especially when you have McCullough Hardman and, Sammy.
Yeah, speed, but you got Jalen Reagor, like you talked about. Jalen Rager's a really fast receiver. You see him on speed tape. You got Denzel Mims, who's also really fast and he's big. Like,
yeah, right.
If you don't need to. I think there's a lot of fluff out there right now of, like you said, it's lying season.
Yeah, yep.
Everyone's lying to try to get ahead and get their players. I don't see it.
Now, I think if DeAndre Swift changes his last name so it starts with a W, maybe the Chiefs will be interested. Looks like we got Danny Williams, Darrell Williams just signed a
Darwin Thompson to the D.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Thompson still has but and then DeAndre Washington getting signed there recently. So I a lot of people would be happy if they drafted a running back. I don't see that happening, at least not anytime early.
No, not in the first 2 rounds for sure. I would like to see, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, San Francisco picks up a running back. I'm like, they don't do that in the first round. The new era, and I'm a San Francisco fan, and I'd be pissed, first off. Secondly, I'd be excited as a fantasy player, but as a 49ers fan, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
Because Shanahan's made undrafted free agents amazing. There's no point in drafting a first-round running back. No point. Like, I guess if you really want to create an absolute best running team ever imaginable, then sure, but it's not. Anyways, going off a different tangent than we're going on. We went from where do you want to see your players to go, or I don't see these teams drafting one.
Yeah, but you did bring up a good point. We want all these guys. We're like, all right, this guy's going to go here and this guy's going to go there and they're going to be great. And And then, come tomorrow or Thursday and Friday and Saturday, we're going to be looking at these spots like, well, that's not where I wanted this guy to go. It never happens exactly how you want.
I see one going to Atlanta. I see one going to, which is fine. Gurley's Gurley. I think they're going to be committee, and that's fine. I see. It's going to be that a lot of Rams probably going to draft another running back, $10. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of those moments where you just want to pull your hair out and go, why? I was so hyped on him. I drafted this guy before he get landing spots, and stuff like that.
Yep.
Which is risky, but it's also fun. All right, cool. So we talked about running backs. Wide receivers, where would you want to see CeeDee Lamb go?
Well, the 49ers would be a good one. I think the Eagles, I don't think he's going to fall that far, but the Eagles is probably my top destination for a wide receiver.
Not the Raiders?
Raiders would be good too. Texans are another one that I think would be interesting just because they have, they traded for Cooks, right? And they still have Fuller. You're looking at guys that have had, concussion issues or hamstring issues. So I think that's a good spot for a wide receiver to end up. I mean, if he went to the Raiders, though, we're probably looking at 150 targets. So that's a really good spot.
So a lot of people like the Jets as the landing spot, which I like beyond this year, or at least until Adam Gase disappears.
Yeah, right.
And disappears and fades with his big bug eyes going and the background like Homer Simpson into the bush.
Yeah, I'm not a Jets fan. Darnold, I think, has improved a little bit. I think he's just in a tough spot. When guys succeed when they get away from Adam Gase.
That's true.
It's just not a good landing spot for any fantasy asset.
It's the Jeff Fisher syndrome.
Yeah, right.
And apparently, it's a thing. I'm not enamored with it as well because I said first year, not so much. Maybe the next year after that, I'll be more enamored with it. And it'll probably be all the targets. Like, well, the Jets suck. It's not going to be a lot of targets. They're going to try to run the ball. They're going to not going to. It's a coaching problem, not a opportunity problem.
Right.
That's my point of view on that. There's also talks out there of Jacksonville being a possible landing spot, which I'm like, okay, but I really thought Minshew and name's escaping me right now. Shark, thank you. Yeah. I thought they had a real good connection. Yeah.
I mean, Shark's he's a guy that I guess he kind of broke out last year, but he's another guy we could probably mention on
third year
list.
Third year workout.
Yeah, and really that's going to depend on Minshew. Is he the guy? Can he really take that next step and command that team?
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, outside of him, I saw they just released Marquise Lee yesterday. They still have Westbrook, Conley. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that any of those are really inspiring me too much. I liked Westbrook coming out of college, but he hasn't done a whole lot.
Yep. I'm also puzzled. I know Miami has tons of picks, but I don't think wide receivers should be one of them. They have Preston Williams, who did really good last year until he got injured. Parker finally did his fifth year breakout.
Finally, right?
That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for Corey Davis to do that this year.
It's his time.
It's time. But that's why I don't get puzzled by it. I'm like, okay, so all these people are mocking the Miami Dolphins that drafted wide receiver. Like, oh, pair with their quarterback. I'm like, they already got two good wide receivers and a good tight end that's emerging as well. And that rookie quarterback isn't going to play right away. They like Fitzmagic. He has a glorious beard. Like, what's not to like about this?
Fitzmagic, he won't go away.
Nope. But the guy played amazing last year the reason he had 5 wins last year on a crappy team.
Right.
They chipped off everybody, and those players did great wherever they went to. Drake went to Arizona. He did pretty well there, kind of up and down, but, did pretty well there. The safety, Minka Fitzpatrick, he did great with the Steelers and stuff like that. And so it's kind of interesting that Fitzmagic made this team work, and that's kind of interesting to me. But anyways, back to the point of, do you see them drafting wide receiver early?
I don't, not early. And, especially given how deep the wide receiver class is, I think there's guys they can get later. I think there's, they have an opportunity to address a lot of different needs and make their team better. I don't think a wide receiver steps in and makes their team immediately better. I would probably attack a different position.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And that's not one of my favorite bowl landing spots because of those two other wide receivers that were talked about. So,
right.
Talking about favorable and non-favorable now. We always talked about the Niners being a good spot. I also agree with that. I also like I actually really like anyone who goes to Green Bay in the first round.
Yeah.
In the first round, the late first round, a lot of those wide receivers, we talk about Rager, talk about Mims, Justin Jefferson. I love Justin Jefferson. He should be just music. When the sun hits these hills just right. Oh,
Yeah, that is a good landing spot. And, I think Rodgers has been looking for that second guy to go with Adams for a couple of years now. And they've gone with some of those bigger speed guys like, Valdez-Scantling, just has not worked out. It just seems like Rodgers doesn't have faith in anyone outside of Adams.
Nope. I don't disagree with that at all. So we talked about a little bit about running back spots where we just think they're not going to land when they want to. We talked about Tampa Bay being a great one. Kansas City, obviously, everyone's salivating about Kansas City, and I get it. I would be salivating too, especially if CHE went there. Oh my gosh, that would be match made in heaven, right? You don't ask them to really pass block all that much. Great. Running back goes to San Francisco. Everyone automatically falls in love with that, which I also get. Well, what do you think? So we talked about Chris Carson being injured. We talked about Chris Carson and how we like him, but do you think he's a little more injury prone? Do you think Seattle addresses that position in the draft?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I don't know that they're going to go for a running back in the first round after what happened with Penny. I think the fan base might get a little angry at that.
I live up here, Northwest. I'm pretty sure they get a little PO. Just
But I mean, yeah, that would be a good spot just because of how much they like running the ball. And there are some injury concerns surrounding both Carson and Penny going into next year. I've seen, and even this was a couple months ago, that they expected Carson to be ready for the start of the season, but that would be best case scenario. So I think they address the position. I'm just not sure when they'll actually go after a running back.
No, for sure. I think it'd be a good landing spot is my point. Kind of like a Miles Sanders ask of when he gets his chance, he should just explode, right, with the Seattle. Yeah. So there's that. Who else do you think is a good landing spot for a running back?
Indianapolis is an intriguing spot as well. They haven't extended Marlon Mack. They've kind of said they're going to table that for now. So I think that he's going into the last year of his contract, if I'm correct. And behind that offensive line, that's another team I don't see going running back early. It would surprise me. But I think that would be a top landing spot if, just because of that offensive line. They re-signed Costanzo this offseason. They still have Quentin Nelson, kind of crazy guy paving the way, pulling on these blocks.
Makes you like watching, offensive line film, right?
Yeah, it does for sure. So I think that's an interesting spot there.
Well, I think that's it. Do you got anything else you want to add at all, or anything else we can discuss? Or
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of ground for sure.
Absolutely.
I think if we want to look at guys like O.J. Howard, Josh Reynolds. Talking guys, maybe target in these next couple of days before the draft. McVay came out and said trading Cooks away was kind of a vote of confidence for Josh Reynolds. So that might drive his price up a little bit, but he's kind of a guy that you might be able to get cheap right now that could be highly productive next year.
Always been a Josh Reynolds fan. When I was trying to write for fantasy football when I started, I don't still write at all because I'm not that great at writing. But I had an article on Josh Reynolds and how I really loved him coming out and how he was actually really a star in the waiting, I thought, and because he was a great route runner. I remember Matt Waldman loved him too, which I respect him. And so I'm really excited to see him finally get a shot, and that's pretty exciting. That's a great point, though, about Josh Reynolds. See, this is why I bring you on. You just make me remember everything.
Oh, good.
All right, cool. Well, I think that's about it, guys. Glad you listened. Doug, tell them about where you can find your work.
Yeah, head on over to Breakout Finder. There's a lot of good content, a lot of new guys pumping out a lot of really good articles, running back models, good wide receiver content, good Devy content. Definitely check out Breakout Finder. If you want to follow me, DGen Indy, I appreciate you having me on. This has been fun.
Yeah, sorry the draft genius wasn't here to do this for you. He's had technical difficulties with him being out in the countryside. Thank you so much for coming on. Also donate to the show's Patreon to fund more content and ways to better the show as a whole at patreon.com/DynastyWire. Follow us at, all these places we talked about. I'm at Dynasty Mechanic, Dino Mechanic specific. That's important. Have a good one, guys.